indomitable in terms of his position. He has a very strong character. He has a strong history. He's a very, very well-trained lawyer. And he has gone it the hard way. You know, since 1987, I still remember that headline of the Daily Nation when they were expelled with his executive from the University of Nairobi. Then he went to Canada. And in Canada, he has had a very sterling performance as a lawyer. Look at that. In this country, the individuals occupying very senior positions in government, in the private sector, and in the civil society, even in the media, who have gone through Miguna's training hands. I had opportunity in 2001 when I was trying to, when I went to extend my visa to stay in the US after completing my studies, to go to Miguna's office and even to his house in Toronto. It's a very, in terms of his career, his profession, is very organized individual. In terms of his positions, you need to read his books. Miguna is well-written individual, not just when he became an employee of the in the Prime Minister's office, even before, when he was in school, when he was doing his undergraduate and master's and his doctorate. He is a man of letter. Okay? So looking at it that way, that side, and the fact that he has had opportunity to give back to his community, Kenya, to train individuals and to mentor individuals, professionals, who are now contributing very importantly to national building in their respective fields, I think Miguna should be credited in that regard. Now, on the other side, you don't know whether to pity him or condemn him, because as my brother David has aptly put, sometimes it's a question of interpersonal skills and you know, just basic demeanor. When do you retreat? When do you give space? I recall in 2008, I walked to Miguna at Westgate. We had just come from the controversial elections, just newly elected to Parliament. I had not seen him in about a year or so. And I walked to greet him at the entrance of the main entrance of Westgate. And I was holding my little daughter then. And this, you know, I wanted to say hi and congratulate him for his appointment, for his role in the campaign. And, you know, just before I got to him, said, boy, shouted, boy, how did you mess yourself like that? Because you had taken opposite positions. So you don't know when to embrace Miguna, and you don't know when to distance yourself from Miguna. However, on this appointment of deputy governor of the state of Nairobi, he is right. Because, you know, you don't just appoint me without giving me a call, without sending me a text message. It's an important position. Without sending me a WhatsApp message, you know, really. Unless you want to place me or to play me in a very enviable position.
It's just Sonko is actually following, you know, the given script that we have in this country, that you can make broadside declarations and appointments, and people will just hear that from the TV.
Most of the people these days, when they are proposed into the county government positions, when people are being presented by political parties to be speakers of assemblies, when people are being proposed to be appointed to cabinet.
Thank you.
They are normally consulted. So I think people should stop playing Miguna.
All right, let's
give him his space.
Let's say from Dr. Shemochuodo. You know, some pundits also are saying this was just a diversionary tactics, you know, to actually bounce off the heat that Sonko was receiving because of the mess in the city that we can actually see right now.
Debarl, allow me to wish Kenyans and friends of Kenya Ramadan Karim during this holy month, particularly the Muslims. In terms of the Miguna matter, and indeed a number of issues that seem to have rented out the air, I am thinking that we are looking at issues that should not really be headline news, in my view. I think they are more important issues to Kenyans, whether it's jobs and so on and so forth, we should be getting due attention than what we seem to be carrying. However, having said that, in the case of Miguna, like my colleagues, very hesitant to talk about it because on the one hand, it's very difficult to place MM, as his fans prefer to call him. In terms of Governor Sonko nominating him to be his deputy, I think it's within his mandate as governor. Is that sole mandate to nominate whoever he wants to deputize him. And by the same token, Miguna is a Kenyan, I believe he is, I assume he is, because that's another issue, is eligible to be deputy governor like anybody else. And it's his prerogative to accept or decline an appointment. So because I don't have all the details, what prompted Governor Sonko to pick on Miguna, I think he would make a good deputy to Governor Sonko. But allow me just to clarify on the issue of, there's been this misperception that dual citizens cannot hold public office. I think it's Article 78(2), which states, a state officer or a member of the defense forces shall not hold dual citizenship. Okay, that's what it says. So some people, there's the issue of if Miguna is still a Canadian, and this is probably why he is being careful not to accept that office, because what it means is if he's going to take up that position, that's 78(2), then he will have to rescind that nationality, the other nationality. I'm hoping that going forward, if there's going to be a referendum at all, one of the things that we need to relook at is this particular provision. I do recall that Kenya Diaspora Alliance this was one of the submissions to the committee of experts when we suggested that certain offices should not be held by dual citizens. But we were very specific. We said the President of the Republic of Kenya should not be a dual citizen.
Right.
And we also said the head of military intelligence and the chief of general staff. But other than that, the other public officers, really, it's very different. So in that regard, but the appeal court did rule in the case of Taita Taveta senatorial candidate, that it's not that a dual citizen cannot run for office. They're eligible to run, but if they win, then to assume office, they must rescind the other. So I just wanted to make that clarification. But otherwise, I am hoping that Miguna will accept the appointment and the MCS will approve his appointment and see how they play out.
Okay, let's hear from Omogene. Given the legal minefield that now we are walking into as far as the Constitution is concerned, what has been raised here, Article 78 subsection 2, that yes, you cannot really hold office if you hold a dual citizenship. Are the lawyers of Miguna none the wiser as far as the Constitution is concerned? Why will they go full steam ahead and also draft this particular letter of nomination to Miguna if we have this particular section of the Constitution?
Yeah, first, Debarl, I must say that we are dealing with two very interesting characters. One is Mike Sonko, who seems to be undergoing a very serious transformation. We have always known him as a conformist, but in the appointment of Miguna as his deputy governor, it seems like there is a divorce somewhere between him and establishment. But perhaps he's a good student of, I think, a book by an autobiographer for John F. Kennedy, A Team of Rivals, that he wants to pick people who are previously his rivals. I think he had a lot of abuses from Miguna, but he's still saying, fine, I want to put that aside, come along, and we work together. Then Miguna is extremely unpredictable. I mean, you don't know when you will make a decision that will be pleasing to him. You don't know when he will dismiss you. Very, very unpredictable character. But for me, Miguna's, what we have seen Miguna go through is a test to a number of our institutions. It's now that we are putting to test a number of institutions that we enacted in our 2010 Constitution. To begin with, remember that Miguna has a court order by, I think, Justice Luka Kimaru, which pronounced that Miguna is a Kenyan. Miguna should be given back his passport. He should be allowed to fly back into the country. But that has continuously been defied. And when he was coming back, he was saying, look, I'm coming back on the strength of a court order that was issued by a recognized High Court of the Republic of Kenya and allow me to be back. I think that way a message has been sent that there are powers that be within the government that may not necessarily respect court orders. That is worrying. Now, the second test is what we are going to see through the vetting by the county assembly. Because the Constitution recognizes that the governor has got the mandate to nominate who takes over as his deputy governor. Now, once he's done that, it moves to the next level, where we are now going to put to test the ability of the County Assembly of Nairobi to consider Miguna's nomination vis-a-vis the provisions of the Constitution, the law, and its suitability, and make a decision. And mark you, Debarl, if they approve his nomination,
yes,
the constitutional process will kick in, and Miguna will become the deputy governor of the county of Nairobi. That's the test that we are having. We want to see how far can the County Assembly of Nairobi be objective, considering the constitutional legal provisions, and make a decision. Back to Mike Sonko. I'm looking at Sonko as a man who is also very...
Before you head there, but that
Yes.
legal provision, you think he is going to renounce his...
you remember, you see,
his dual citizenship?
I know there is that article, but remember, if you read B there, it says, you know, a state officer or a member of the defense forces shall not be a dual citizenship, but it say B, unless any person who has been made a citizen of another country by operation of that country's law without ability to opt out. You should take note of that, without ability to opt out.
Where is that? I can't place
That
it.
is B, 78(2)B.
It's 2B. Okay,
Yes.
okay.
So what I'm saying is, these are the issues. If we really want to say, and you know, we have had a long debate for a long time about qualifications of members of county assembly. So I expect when they sit down to decide on suitability and approval, because that is their constitutional mandate, Debarl. If they say no, that becomes the end of the matter. If they approve it, it becomes another constitutional animal in the room, because nobody can now stop Miguna from ascending to his office.
But given that particular assembly, let's come to you, David Makali, of course, Nairobi County, which is largely Jubilee driven?
Yes.
Yes. Do you think they're going actually to... Of course, also Sonko is from Jubilee, but it seems also within Jubilee there is that polarization. There is now the Sonko people, and now there is establishment of the Jubilee party as well.
And there's a right I wanted to make.
There's a right as well.
Yeah, you know, I've also seen that Sonko may have taken note of the fact that there could be somebody who wants to engineer a process to impeach him. And you know that another constitutional crisis is that as long as there is no deputy governor in the county of Nairobi, if you impeach Sonko, there is nobody to take over.
So there's a
So
vacuum.
it serves him right to create this long-standing kind of struggle on who should be the deputy governor of Nairobi. That gives him more time to survive. Because you really can't engineer an impeachment when you don't have a deputy governor to take over from him.
Could we talk about that, the politics around it? Because it seems also, yes, first of all, we've taken a long protracted time as far as, you know, him appointing a deputy governor is concerned. Names have been forwarded, also maybe some of them have been embroiled in corruption, and the court also had, you know, their ruling as far as the integrity is concerned. But let's hear from David Makali before we drill deeper into the politics surrounding this county as well.
Well, the county, I mean, Sonko has, and he said it himself on Friday, he's in good books with his, you know, his members of the county assembly. The things Sonko is being blamed for can similarly be blamed on the members of the county assembly, because Sonko as governor has only limited power to do certain things.
Yes.
He's subject to the law with regard to the operations of the county government, the expenditure and so forth. So the condemnation of Sonko, which has been personalized, is in my view, quite misplaced. And I hold the view, as Sonko has said, even though he may have shortcomings, that he has not had sufficient time to really perform. I mean, 6 months is really a short time to rectify all that is wrong within this city. And his plea that it will be given more time, I think, to me, has holds some water. I see this is not a matter entirely in the hands of the members of the county assembly. If they were just to vote, and they vote to stand with their governor, then they will definitely endorse Miguna. But as it is, this is a political game, and it's larger than just the county assembly. The Jubilee Party has its stake, and I think it wants to dictate or you know, determine how this matter will be resolved. if at the center of Jubilee, they believe that it's time to maybe, you know, shoe in Miguna and sort out this thing, then it will pass. But if at the center of Jubilee, Gabando is better informed than me about this, thinking in there, I can only speculate. But I suspect that there is not yet consensus on whether Miguna should be, that nomination should stand. Because we heard from the majority leader, Aden Duale, saying, you know, that can pass. But after one day, people were retreating to their corners, and there seems to have been somebody who wielded a stick. And I think that stick must have been in the form of the handshake. So I see that things are still playing out. Possibility is that, as Raila told Miguna, he should go to the Canadian High Commission Kenyan High Commission in Canada and get his documents and probably come back. If he does, it will have set the stage for his vetting by the Assembly. And as the senior counsel, Omogeni, says, it could just be that Miguna turns out to be the deputy governor of Nairobi. But Sonko is also playing his game. I mean, he has said that people are trying to impose on him their choices of who should be deputy governor. Yes. With a view to obviously, you know, making him sit uncomfortably in the event they don't like his antics. They can kick him out or, you know, institute or instigate an impeachment which can result in such a deputy becoming the governor eventually. So there are issues around there. It's very intricate politics. Nothing is on the surface that can be clearly read in Sonko's motives for appointing or nominating Miguna, in the response of Jubilee initially, and what looks like now a muted resistance, which is disappearing. Something is obviously going on.
Yes, something is cooking. Allow us to just take a short break, Dr. Shemo Chodo. When we circle back, of course, we shall continue with you. We want to take a short break. We continue with this particular debate and looking at a raft of other issues as well, headlining our front pages of the dailies and, of course, the politics of the week there has been as well. You're watching This Is The Point. Don't go away. Welcome back. You're watching This is a Point here on AM Live. We continue apace with our conversation with our panelists, looking at what is happening, of course, with the Nairobi County and Miguna's saga, and of course, the nomination of him as the Deputy Governor of Nairobi. Before we took a short break, we promised also to circle back with Dr. Shem Ochodo. I hope you've not lost your track of thought. No. Yes.
Actually, Debarl, I wanted to make just a little further clarification on the dual citizenship.
Yes.
The article that talks about countries which do not allow dual citizenship may apply for places like Germany. Germany, you cannot be a dual citizen. So you either revoke your Kenyanness if you want to be a German or otherwise. But Canada does allow. So the article sub 2B may not apply in the case of Miguna. But on a more substantive matter related to that, Kenya needs to think of what happens like in India, how they deal with cases where other countries don't allow dual citizenship. They give a special document that their citizens can still use, even when they come back home, and yet still are not officially Indian citizens. But also, more significantly, there are a number of people, I think, in government who are holding positions, state offices, and are dual citizens. So perhaps this is something that we need to decide. Is it only applicable in the case of Miguna, or do we need to do an audit, or is it something we need to change in the law? So it should, I think there's a bigger problem there in terms of dual citizenship. In the case of Miguna being deputy to Sonko, I think there's a bit of politics going on here. There's been the claim that some people are trying to prop up Miguna to be an alternative leader for the Luo people, the Nyanza people, for that matter. And as to whether that's something that he would manage, I'm really not too sure. But again, it strikes me, I think I agree with my colleagues who are saying that maybe Sonko is just buying time really here. I don't think he's really, really serious that he wants Miguna to be his deputy. If he did want, I'd be very happy. I would wish both him and Miguna very well. Because there are certain things that only a Miguna can do. When it comes to dealing with cartels and so on. Of course, there may even be cases of witch hunt that you would get into that domain. But I am not too sure whether this is a proxy war that Sonko is handling here.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's hear from Kabando. Kabando.
As I said, it is a game of politics. And there are many players in the city politics today. On one side, there's the political players, and on the other side are the commercial interest players. And therefore, it is very difficult, to agree with my colleagues, to really zero down on one factor that is determining. But something interesting happened last week or so. In the first day of Sonko's pronouncement of Miguna as his nominee for DG, some members of the majority side of the assembly held a quickly convened press conference to dismiss the possibility of Miguna being vetted. Then we also had a statement from the senator of the city of Nairobi saying, Miguna, you can take this to the bank. Miguna cannot be the deputy governor. Also, the same day, earlier in the morning, in a radio talk show, we had the speaker of the county assembly of the city saying, this person has problems, he should go and sort out the problem with the state before even thinking. Then over the weekend, I saw another press conference. Majority of the players had spoken earlier opposite. Now they said, we are ready, we have no problem with the governor, and they will consider his proposal to have Miguna. So this tells you what? Easily, that there are other players, besides and above and beyond the county assembly chambers and the executive offices of City Hall. It means the other players that are, saying something, like, just commit this. But legally speaking,
yes,
common decency, political decorum, you don't comment on a case before you when you are a judge. Omugeni will tell you, if you are a member of a parliamentary committee or assembly committee. You don't speak in rallies and barazas and press conferences about a matter that is pending before you. So what would have expected is for the assembly to await the governor's letter as received by the county assembly speaker and then commit on it. But I can tell you, we should also know that the players in the city, the county assembly membership of Nairobi City, is very qualitative, and they are serious individuals. So they are seized of this matter. Beside the side issues, the politics, you know, the sarcasm and drama, they are very seized of the fact that Nairobi is very important, and the fall of Nairobi would mean the fall of very important careers. They are young people, mostly, with the well thought out. I know quite a number of them. And so what is going to unfold moving forward will be different from what we saw last week. Let the due process take its place. Let's see whether there will be vetting.
Yes.
Let's see the position to be taken. And let's also see whether the Kenyan Senate.
All right.
I had an engagement with the senator, some senators, and one of them commented that, and I seen his story today, the senator of Makueni, Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr. And I was asking the Twitter conversation, what is the role of the Senate? Reading about the role of the Senate in the Constitution, and we have a senator here, is about counties. And the only other role they play beside counties is if there is an impeachment of the presidency. So on this matter of Nairobi, would be seeing the Kenyan Senate rising to the occasion and showing its mantle and its place, besides what they normally do, going to do investigations on matters that are needed before the National Assembly, where there is duplication. So this is a historic opportunity for the Kenyan Senate to step forward and create a conversation about the city of Nairobi.
Yes, clarity and sobriety, then that should be your lead, of course. But I want to talk about the politics now of this particular event that we're happening. Are there, or is there any political will to make sure that Nairobi County is working effectively? Or the political class also within this city maybe are trying to scuttle the whole process of, you know, frustrating Sonko so that he does not really have a wiggle room to work, right? So, right, maybe from the media, right, maybe from also all these skirmishes that we're having and people saying that Nairobi is not really, you know, in mint condition as far as cleanliness is concerned. You can tell us about this. And in light of this, maybe I'll hark you back to last year and that bill that we were talking about, and it was before Senate when we had the senator of Murang'a, that is
Kembi Gitura.
Kembi Gitura, right? He came up with the Nairobi Metropolitan Bill. And this bill was effectively, you know, trying to, you know, assure that Nairobi County is taken back to the national government and not to be you know, a county as it is right now, under a governorship of anyone. But now that should be, you know, a sole mandate of the national government to oversee the smooth running of this particular county. Could this particular story had begun there? And is this the script that is being, of course, you know, written right now, as far as making sure that you scaffold the process, and then we come and say Nairobi County is not really working, so the president should dissolve the county and it should go back to the national government? I do not know the particular maybe article in the Constitution, because I seem to have actually misquoted Article 138. But you can actually, yes, bring your legal mind to bear on this as well.
First, you know, let's follow up on this issue of, you know, Migona's dual citizenship and his qualification for position of...
you want to discount what
deputy governor?
Yes.
Yeah, you know, the Constitution is very clear on qualifications of people who are running for political offices. And when you look at the seat of governor, Article 180 sub-Article 2 is very clear that you are eligible to run for the seat of governor, by extension deputy governor, if you meet qualifications of running for a seat of the county assembly.
Yes. And
if you go to Article, I believe that should be 193,
yes,
qualification for election as member of county assembly. If you read sub-Article 1932C, it says if one has not been a citizen of Kenya for at least 10 years immediately preceding the date of election. That's what the Constitution says. So it has got very clear, minimum requirements for you to run for the seat of county assembly and by extension to be nominated for the seat of deputy governor. And I can tell you, Debarl, that there are a number of people who have been elected into various offices who have dual citizenship, but they followed their nomination into offices by following what the Constitution says about qualifications of people who are running for election to various seats, including governor, senate, member of parliament, county assembly. So I think, as I said, we want to see that debate on the floor. And remember, as we said earlier, Miguna has court orders. Miguna has also been nominated before to run for the seat of governor by the same constitutional bodies, IEBC, Ethics and Corruption Commission. So this may not be the right time to pull that card. Now, in terms of the politics, I think, Sonko's nomination was like, he was going to be a puppet governor, and he was going to be given technocrats to run the county government of Nairobi. But I think he has surprised, many who thought that he was not going to be a man of himself, he was not going to assert himself. And I think he has, for the last 6 months, he has surprised many by coming out, fighting. You know what happened the other day when he was with the president? He took over a microphone from a minister who had kind of bypassed him in terms of protocol. He was not given a chance to address the people of Nairobi. And he came out forcefully and said, I'm the governor of Nairobi, I must speak, don't fight me. He's been taking the war to the doorstep of the PS Interior, Mr. Kibisho. He's been complaining that the government used to give money to Kidero to offer services to the people of Nairobi, over 9 billion. I don't know how true that is. He says that money is not coming, I'm being fought. And then he's been saying that the national government wants to take over services that were meant to be offered constitutionally by the county government of Nairobi. So you see that there are people who may have thought that by having Sonko there, they will have somebody who will not have a grip on running the affairs of the city. But I think Sonko has surprised them. So after that surprise, I think now we are seeing forces that are fighting. There are forces out to control various businesses. I think Nairobi receives the highest amount of allocation in terms of sharing of national revenue. And there are so many national interests. There are so many business cartels that want to benefit from any regime in the county government of Nairobi. And I think those are the fights that we are seeing coming to the fore. As it was ably put by my panelists, there are people who want to control who becomes the deputy governor of Nairobi. We even read, I don't know how true that is, that even the county secretaries, I don't think there is any county in this republic that attracts interest from high stakes in government as to who should become the secretary of the county government, other than in Nairobi, where you see that it's very high officials in government who want to dictate to Sonko who should be the county secretary. So I think Sonko has reached a time where he says, look, you are pushing me too hard. I need to be in charge of this city. I need to run the affairs of the county government of Nairobi. Enough is enough. I think that's where we are now.
Enough is enough. So why are people raising accusatory finger to Sonko, and yet he claims he's being frustrated, by powers that be? If you are actually not funded or underfunded, then how do you expect also to run the city smoothly, David Makali?
Well, Nairobi has enough money. I don't think, not enough to do what we need to do, but it gets quite a good share. From the lion's share, so to speak. But it obviously needs more money, and more is being collected, and Sonko says he's raising more money than his predecessor, Kidero. There are disputes around how much, whether in fact he's collecting as much, and why there are issues around that, and where the money may be going. It is not that Sonko has not been given opportunity to work. He is working, and I think the county government is trying to put its act together. It is just that, like I said earlier on, the problems with Nairobi are huge. So you need a lot of time, and there could be swift action that can yield immediate returns or results, such as clearance of garbage and so on, and fixing roads, which are repair issues, which money can be allocated to. And I think the effort is there, but it's not good enough. And I think Nairobians are hungry for more, and they want it now. But I mean, give it to him. Within 6 months, which other county government has done anything anyway? if you look, it's not just Nairobi. And the problems Nairobi is experiencing, bad services, water, all these issues, are also being encountered in the other cities. And there was a poll the other day, by TIFA, which showed that even the other residents in other counties are equally dissatisfied with the county governments and the governance of those counties. Mombasa, Kisumu, and I'm sure if you poll the rest of the counties, you'll find equal disgruntlement in all these counties. So we need to have we're hungry for immediate results, but also it must be contextualized. Within what time do we expect what results? That is the rational thing to do. Nobody is stopping Sonko from doing his work. I think he's doing his work, but people are not seeing the results are not evident or visible. There are vested interests, like Mogeni has said, in Nairobi, and people, and a lot of, I mean, this Nairobi controls almost 60% of our economy in terms of the the GDP, which that's why everybody has a stake and an interest in seeing how they can play in that area. And within the resources managed by the county government, and there are a lot from, rates collected, over land, which is the city county government controls. And a lot of deals happen around land, transactions, who is acquiring which land, who is being allocated, and so on, land transiting. And people make money from using city resources, which are public resources. So everybody wants to have their man in there to make sure that they have a toe or a finger in the till, and that's what the problem is. That's why they want to see who is being appointed to be CEC for what, and that's why the national government, individuals within the national government, and the national government at the center of it, right up to the presidency, wants to see how Nairobi is going to be run and who is in charge of its running. Ideally, we're not saying taking back Nairobi to the national government, because it was never under national government anyway. It was a county government, just like a city council used to run in the same manner the county government is running.
The local government. The
local government.
Yes.
But there is the perception that Nairobi is important as a capital city of the country, and maybe it needs to have some superstructures which can guarantee the services that we deserve, and that an international city, the seat of Kenya, ought to have. And that's where the challenge is. Do we upgrade, and do we do that under the current memorandum of understanding which is happening between the national government and the county, or do we look for a constitutional amendment that vests Nairobi outside the counties, 47 counties, and becomes as an extra territorial, another territory altogether, not a county?
So that particular plan was in the offing, don't you think, with that particular bill we just mentioned of Kembe Gitura?
It was, and I think it's a good idea. But we have also seen in the past, national government is not exemplary in its management of affairs anyway. Yeah. So we cannot keep uploading that if it's under national government, everything will fly. Before, there was Jamlek Kamau, who was Minister for Metropolitan Nairobi. Tell me what he did, or what the national government did.
Jamlek, not Jamlek, who is the ambassador in the US right now?
Yeah, Jamlek Kamau, the member he didn't make it in the whatever. But under Kibaki's administration, there was the Ministry for Metropolitan Nairobi.
Yes.
And Jamlek
Gidai. Well, that was under Gidai.
Jamlek, I think, was the first.
Well, Jamlek was the first.
Jamlek was the first, and then Gidai came next.
No, Jamlek was actually the last, because Gidai became finance minister,
taking over from.
Jamlek took over from.
I remember Jamlek was, because I engaged with him at that time when he was. And I can tell you that there is nothing we can write home about that tenure when Nairobi was under national government, under a whole ministry. So we must look at the issues clinically, rather than just jump from one phase to another, one format structure to another. That's my view.
All right, let's close it up. We move to other things. Yeah, briefly
my
from
take
you.
would be on this, Debarl, is I fully agree. Nairobi needs special attention. Maybe not just Nairobi. Let me say the cities, Mombasa, Kisumu. Perhaps they need to have a higher level criteria in terms of the leadership. I do know that there have been many the Nairobi We Want conventions, but many of those recommendations, which I would believe involve public participation, are just shelved. So we need to bring them to bear, so that yes, we have special provision for those city counties. But lastly, just a little clarification. Miguna, we are told, regained his citizenship, I think 2008. So one would assume that the 10-year requirement, I think it's a dicey area. But one would also believe that IBC looked at all this before he ran, because he was eligible to run for county government, for a governor. So I wanted just to mention that that provisions Senior Counsel raised may not be particularly applicable in the case of Miguna. But
you know, as you get out of Nairobi,
not literally, from this conversation.
the conversation about Nairobi.
Okay. There
are cities in this world that are now in the first world, but a number of years ago, 20, 30 years, were actually at the same level in the Nairobi. And Kenya, they are the countries that were at that level. For instance, Kuala Lumpur.
Right.
Okay? If you go there, and I've heard stories and narratives about delegations that have been leaving Kenya to Kuala Lumpur to go understand what was done to develop that capital of Malaysia.
Sure.
And when you arrive, the engineers, the architects, the city planners will go to the shelves. And what do they produce? Kenya.
Right.
Plans that developed out of their study tours to Nairobi in 1970s.
And they were not implemented.
Were not implemented. So, and if you know, I have been to Harare, you go and get the professionals in charge of planning and management of some of the beautiful cities in Africa were actually workers in the city council then. So the conversation about Nairobi needs to move beyond the individual attestations and the battles of controls to what do we have, the intellectual capital, the professional know-how to put Nairobi forward. And this can be done even as politics is happening. Because Kenya is very known to be a resilient country that can, like other nations, like in America now, you know, they are doing politics 24/7. Even now we are going to do the politics of succession and politics of Nairobi 24/7. But management and the progress of the city can still proceed. So as we talk about the deputy governor, the motions in the county assembly, and who is with the governor today and who is not with the governor tomorrow, the process of development of Nairobi should go forward, because from governor's statement himself, he is getting, I think, per month about $1 billion compared to 100 million that was being received from the previous administration. So the resources are available.
Thank you.
The professionals are available. The Sonko cabinet, some of whom we know for many years, are very qualified. So what we need is the stability of the processes of management. The politics can be ignored by management. It does happen.
Right.
Even stock exchange.
All right, thank you. Okay.
It does ignore.
Let's shift gears now to see when we talk about the handshake, because we have this particular pronouncement from the Deputy President where he's slamming the opposition leader Raila Odinga, saying his handshake with President Uhuru Kenyatta was for selfish gains and not for the interest of Kenyans, as he claims. Ruto remarks coming shortly after Raila's lecture to Kenyans in the United Kingdom, where Raila said his coalition did not lose in the elections, but that he made peace with President Kenyatta as he ponders his next move in his quest to reach Canaan, the destination he had promised his supporters. Take a listen.
Tuliwanasa, tukawapeleka kwa mahakama bila Bwana Maraga, na tukatoa ushahidi ya kutosha, na mahakama ikakubaliana na sisi. Sema wakiiba tunawanasa. Nasa hawa. Nasa hawa. Nasa hawa. That's why we said wakiiba tutawanasa. Na tuliwanasa.
Hakuna haja ya kuzunguka Kenya hii na kuzunguka dunia hii kutembeza propaganda na porojo na fitina ati Jubilee hawakushinda uchaguzi. Sisi tulishinda uchaguzi mapema, mchana, wa Kenya waliamua.
The only democratic and fair election that has been held was the one of 2002. From 1963, where there were no complaints. And in that elections, the Electoral Commission had been nominated, half of it by the opposition and half of it by the government of the day.
The biggest threat to our democracy, our progress, and our stability is people who have questionable democratic credentials and dictators who participate in elections, yet they cannot accept the outcome of any election.
Jamaa wa handshake wa vitendawili amekuja na referendum. Juzi nasikia wenzetu wanasema anataka nusu mkate.
We are still very much on our march to Canaan. But we found that River Jordan was infested with crocodiles. So we decided that it's necessary to build bridges.
Who are the crocodiles? That is the probing question we should be asking this morning. And is the deputy president also speaking from both sides of his mouth? He said he will be focusing on the politics of development, but right now we can see he's actually also disparaging the famous or the infamous handshake. Let's hear from our panelist, David Mukali. We begin with you on that note. Yes. The reaction of our deputy president over the handshake before he loaded this particular handshake. Right now, it sounds doubtful about the handshake itself.
You see, from where I sit and I follow these things quite often, it is now clear that, anyway, let me say this. I think the deputy president should restrain himself from any altercations with Raila Odinga that show him to be working or antagonistic to the handshake. He can ignore, because if you look at what Raila said in London, he did not mention anybody, for example. He just spoke in his usual metaphors and talking about, in fact, he used something very creative when he says he was going to Canaan. Then he realized the river was infested with crocodiles. Then he has used the word that is now being used for the handshake. They needed a bridge, to build a bridge. So he is using his own wisdom to communicate something. It is known that the deputy president and Raila are not the best of friends, and their fallout is traced back to 2010 or thereabouts, when he left ODM and went on to form URP and so on. So every time he jumps in or comes into a conversation or comments on Raila's issues, people see a certain old battle being revived. So if I were him, I would avoid that situation where I begin to cast myself against him. Two, the handshake has been interpreted to be something that will not sit well with the deputy president's intentions or ambition to take over in 2022. Strategically, he should be more, restrained again in terms of coming out and exposing his head on a matter that, he has vested direct, clear interest. And then the circumstances in which the handshake was itself crafted, largely to his little participation, if not exclusion, renders the whole arrangement something alien to him that he should also approach with care. And he is a man who is watched. This whole thing is around him because he is on the ball. He is the one who is next in succession. And he has to be careful, because if he's going to be fighting and jumping and responding and getting rattled with every proclamation, 4 years is a long time. He'll falter, he'll fall, he will rise. So, I mean, I don't know what, he's a smart and very intelligent politician, but I think he needs to manage a little bit of his reaction sometimes for his own good.
But given the ongoings, of course, you as a deputy president, you'll feel a bit of heebie-jeebies, get antsy, especially if you pick a headline that is also on the front page of its Star as well. If you may just look at that. Ruto allies from Central go quiet over DP22 bid, right? And a lot has been happening. And of course, he's been making inroads in Central Kenya to try and woo and also secure his voting bloc as well. So why wouldn't you remain?
I would be more calmer. I mean, if you look at, for example, the team that is around him and what they are saying, they are going back to the election politics and hardball, Mutu wa vitendawili and all that. And people have said, look, we are now past that. We are in the handshake era. Let's keep all of us going. Let's forget the breitbarts of the last election. But you can see they are reviving those same attacks. Two, no one needs to defend the election of President Uhuru Kenyatta and the Deputy President going forward, because even Raila is just saying, you know, in jest and also in his own interest. It does not need to be answered or responded to. He is dealing with his constituency. He is defending his actions, why he persisted, and hence the handshake. Give a man his due. Let him appease or somehow deal with his constituency. Don't come in. Play your ball. Nobody is challenging in the election. In fact, they have crossed that bridge with the handshake. There's no more dispute or contestation over the election results. So move forward.
All right. Is Central Kenya really mouthed about Deputy President 2022's bid? Kabando Kabando?
You know, I've spoken about this when I was in Parliament. And when I'm out, one may not have a very strong authority to speak on behalf of anybody, but I have an opinion, okay, and I've written about it. I put it on social media, commented about it in the newspapers and on television. I can tell you two things. One, the position of the Deputy President or Vice President in any country who seeks to succeed his or her boss is very venerable and viable. And you don't need to travel out of Kenya to see or to study the difficulty of that office. You know, look at the first Vice President, how it ended up. When it happened, like, you know, the Vice President was causing some camp within KANU. And in 1966, KANU, the then single party, trooped to Limuru to create 8 positions of Vice President. Every province in Kenya produced a Vice President. And the Jaramogi's position was watered down because people were insecure. People within the camp of Jomo Kenyatta, in my own study, shows that they got insecure. They were uncertain as to whether their interests would be protected by Jaramogi. Then came Murumbi, and Murumbi left. Very celebrated Masai Gwan extraction individual. And then Moi took over. From 1968 to 78, Moi was a vice president at the Kenyatta. And in 1976, we had very serious issues at the camps. And we have talked about it, so let me not repeat again. Yes. People can go and read about that. Now, then Kibaki became a vice president under Moi. Very intelligent man, charismatic, the man whose day of reading the budget anytime was spellbinding this country. I remember in primary school, it was like a holiday nationally when Moi Kibaki was the Minister for Finance, and teachers would come with their radios, more radios, in order to listen the speech. So, but he remained calm under Moi until there was a fallout in 1988, and thereafter the rest is history. So, what I can tell you is that the position of Deputy President needs to be handled with a lot of care. And the people around, and I've spoken about this bull that I can say it live on TV, the people around the incumbent Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya are doing him more harm than good. This excessive sycophancy and dismissal, you know, the Deputy President will rise and speak, and he'll give a very eloquent, sober, and often very visionary speech. But the individuals who have spoken before him, the senators, the members of parliament, will have laid the carpet for a war path, a political blood path. So sometimes it's good to rain on your troops and allow them to moderate, because the message they give, if for instance a senator from Red Valley who is very outspoken, or a senior leader in the national parliament who is very outspoken and is known to be very close to the deputy president, says something, it can easily be read to mean otherwise. Or it can be, the statement can be assigned to the deputy president even when he doesn't mean it, or he never said it, or he never even agrees with it. So political management needs to be done. Moving forward to 2022, because 2022 is going to come, it is undoubted that the deputy president will remain very aggressive. He has created his political space. He's a very resilient individual. Give it to him. Yeah, and some people saw it a long time ago. Even the retired president, Moi, saw it. That's why even I think Mwai Kibaki saw it, that's why he came on this side. And even Uhuru saw it. That's why he went to fish him for running mate, and URP and the TNA got into that partnership. So it is not in doubt that moving forward to 2022, the Deputy President will be very forceful, and he will try to edge everybody around him who will try to occupy an undeserved or undue or competitive space that he needs to occupy. Now, when you assign this to regions, like I've seen now in the headline of this newspaper Star, Ruto allies from Central Kenya go quite over DP's 22 bid. I think we are paralyzing, and we are creating ethnic fiefdoms. So, you know, we want to demarcate the country. You see, Jubilee, give it, has members of parliament in Kitui, Kalonzo's backyard. It has members of parliament in Kakamega, in Trans Nzoia, in Kisii. You know, even when those counties may be at the county leadership of NASA, you know, the rival parties. I don't think it is fair to continue talking about Central Kenya, Central Kenya. When you talk about Central Kenya, you actually mean Kikuyus. The seat of the President of the Republic of Kenya is the seat of the Republic of Kenya, elected by the 42 ethnic nationalities that happen to belong to this God-given.
We see the Deputy President taking a particular interest in Central Kenya, knowing that,
I think
and this was a pact also in the Jubilee Party that, yes, those pronouncements have been there for President Uhuru Kenyatta.
I think,
yes, that
I think it's unfair. If you look at his schedule, I've looked at the schedule of the Deputy President for the whole of this year, the places he has visited. He has been to many other places more than he has been to Central Kenya. Okay? He has been to Western Kenya more often than Central Kenya. He has been to Rift Valley, his place of heritage, more than he has been to Central Kenya. The only interest is because of the Kikuyu question. And the Kikuyu question is, will the people of Mount Kenya, the Gikuyu, Ebu, Meru, and Bere, return a hand and elect the Deputy President?
And of course, that is a question. So
we
cannot outrule the whole question about, yes?
And that is the speculation that the media is trying to force people into. I would say, people of my generation, Omogeni, people of my generation should try as much as possible to dismantle the stereotypes.
Thank you. Let's hear from Omogeni. You actually agree with the position being espoused here by...
Yeah, let me begin with...
By Kabano.
Yeah, let me begin with what makes me a bit sad by the stance being taken by the Deputy President. You know, we were in this panel some times ago, and we agreed that we are at that moment as a country where we all agree that we need some constitutional amendments to our constitution. And we said that this is a time that we need leaders who are going to put the interests of this country first and forget about our individual ambitions. And I am sad, you know, when I am seeing a headline in The Nation that Deputy President is saying referendum is a losers project. You know, as a country, we say that, you know, to have a Kenya where we all have a sense of belonging, you know, to strengthen our institutions so that we all do some cleanup on the constitution that we passed in 2010, we had a very fantastic political climate to do constitutional reform with the handshake of President Uhuru and the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. But the camp spearheaded by the DP, His Excellency William Ruto, seemed to be totally against any attempt to relook at any provision of this constitution. And I think the perception from his camp is that the constitution amendments are meant to block his ascendancy to presidency, or if he was to ascend to the presidency, then it will make his presidency weaker. I really want to appeal to him that history will be, you know, will judge him very harshly if he stands on the way of the Kenyan people who single-minded at this opportune moment are looking forward to a moment to relook and do some amendments to this constitution. And even listening to Dr. Uchodho here, There are so many issues, even on how to clear people to run for elective offices, which should be a serious human rights issue. There's still a cleanup that we need in this constitution. So if I was to talk to DP, I'll tell him, let him divorce his ambitions of looking at 2022 and the larger interest of the Kenyan people wanting to amend our constitution to make it better and to be of more meaning to the people of Kenya. And the Mwananchi, whom I think he says he really holds dear in his heart. But looking at the politics, the handshake that took place at Harambee House between the Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta, you can now, it's now coming out clear that DP Ruto was not part of the handshake. And right from the onset, he was very, very uncomfortable. And his camp felt that this handshake was meant to block his clear ascendance to presidency in 2022. So they have taken the route of fighting, you know, the handshake between Raila and Uhuru Kenyatta. You have heard about families of hustlers and some who come from the royal family. So, and this clip is really being hammered. And then the DP is been very cunning. You know, it tells people, let's forget about campaign. But I can tell you, Debarl, if you look at the itinerary of the DP, he's hit the ground campaigning. He's on the ground campaigning. But when he's on those rallies, we'll tell you we don't want politics. And now, for those who are keen in running for 2022, ask me, who is on the ground with the same presence as the DP? You find Raila Amolo says, I've not said I'm running in 2022. When you move to Musalia, Weta, they are saying we are still talking about merger. You don't hear about Kalonzo. But the other guy is on the ground, he's picking troops. Look at the people who accompany him. If you hear he's in Nandi, you'll find some MPs from Central. Somebody from Western Galwale, he's now a Kodvat. I've had him drum support for him. Surprise allies of Raila Odinga, Aisha in Mombasa. They are the people hosting the DP. So I think those who want to have a strong challenge against the DP should wake up and take note that this guy is already started his campaign. He's putting his team together. He's hit the ground. If they don't respond, it may be too late for them. So politics is taking center stage. Central Kenya, I get the feeling that Central Kenya has not decided. Because when I see the people who endorse the DP, I've not seen that happening in the heart of Central Kenya. You will see that people will be picked from various constituencies or counties from Central Kenya. Then they will travel to far-flung areas with the DP to go and endorse him. And I was asking, why can these declarations be made in Nyeri, in Muranga, and the likes? So there is I think the people who decide politics, and Kabando here could tell us more, from Central Kenya, I think have taken a retreat. I think they have taken a retreat. They are trying to come up with a roadmap. I don't know where it will take us. Maybe time will tell.
Debarl, let me stop the senator there. Please, allow me. Allow me. Allow me. Because I'm a proud son of...
Yes.
So, I'm a proud son of...
Can I finish then?
I think interjection is allowed.
Okay. Can you finish his statement, then you interject, please?
He'll proceed on the wrong premise.
No.
He'll cause a fallacy.
No.
You are risking a fallacy.
Let him finish his thought, then you'll pick up.
Yeah, so I think that's what is playing out. And I think Ruto, as his informers, he's aware that Central Kenya is not yet decided about his candidates for 2022. I think that is aware. And his response is that, let me map out other regions of this country. You have heard, it's Kabando himself who told us that Ruto has been to Central Kenya more than he's been to Western, than he's been to Central. That's loaded. Coming from the former MP from Mukurweini.
I never meant that. Can I interject there? Can you allow me to interject there? You see, Debarl. Okay. You see why I'm talking about a fallacy is where you take a small piece and you want to generalize it instead of doing the specimen study. What I was trying to dissuade or to dismiss is the point that there is so much over-investment in Central Kenya, and I talked about that the Deputy President has been to other areas, and it seems that individuals are deliberately refusing to focus on the Deputy President's visit to those areas or his engagement with the political players in those areas. The second point, this notion that individuals have from some parts of political camps, not because they don't speak for regions, they don't speak for communities, that in Central Kenya plays a different ball game of politics than other communities is completely wrong. And you need to stand it. For instance, if you go to Nyanza, to expect, and Oshoda comes from that area, he has lived it, he knows it. Raila's popularity within Nyanza is not because he's a son of Jaramogi. In fact, he's not the firstborn. The firstborn of Jaramogi is one Dr. Oburu Odinga, whose feature and prominence is not even known beyond Bondo. People even don't know he is a member of Yala. Raila Odinga has built his career from his childhood. And therefore, don't say it is Odingaism. It is Raila who has worked for it. Jaramogi did work for his political network. Uhuru Kenyatta, people say just because he's the son of Jomo Kenyatta, you start talking about dynasty. I can tell you, Uhuru has worked his way up. He stood for the seat of Watondo in 1987 and lost, okay? And he retreated and worked himself. In 2012, I was in parliament, and we defied many odds.
Thank you.
Okay? So, well, we defied many odds for him to grow that way. So, this, I think, people owe everybody, because we are talking about the nation of Kenya, respect and sensitivity. This talk of Central Kenya is retreating. There are people who determine the politics of Central Kenya. I was in parliament for 2 terms. I was never endorsed by a camp of individuals or certain camps retreated in some areas. The people of Central Kenya, may they be Bere or Meru or Ebu or the Gikuyu people, will continue making political decisions conscious of the interests of them.
Thank you.
And also the qualification of individuals.
Let's hear from Dr. Shema Chwaldo.
Debarl, these days I don't always agree with my very good friend Maina Kiaya as a columnist. But in the Sunday Standard, he had something. He said Kenyans should not miss this opportunity to take advantage of the handshake. And
absolutely.
I fully agree with him. Part of it is, I think we're also getting a little diversionary here. I think it would help, and I want to make a passionate appeal to the media, if we would concentrate on the things that matter most to Kenyans, rather than chase our leaders, whatever they say, wherever they say it, whether in jest or they mean it. I think the real serious issues that we need to take advantage of and get out of this handshake. Talking to President Uhuru and the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, probably this is the only opportunity they have to leave proper legacies, to fix Kenya right. And they have spoken it very well. They have talked about the 9 points. But talking to many ordinary Kenyans, when you mention 9 points, they say, you mean there are some 9 points anywhere? I want to request that we educated, enlightened Kenyans a little more about those 9 points, because they are very important. Absolutely. Having said that, there is one thing I like from what the Deputy President says. And I must say that I would be least qualified to tutor him on how to do politics, because he had very good tutors in Right Honorable Raila, in President Moi. So I would be slow to kind of tutor on how he should do the politics. But one thing that he says that I agree with, he says, let's be honest. Let's be honest. But I want to turn it back as a mirror to him. Whatever he says, let him be honest. Let President Kenyatta be honest, whatever he says. Let Right Honorable Raila be honest, whatever he says. If we were going to break away from the past, that should be the starting point. That for once, can we start telling Kenyans the truth? I think in that case, we'll be setting a proper stage where we can turn this country around. Kenya can be a real great country. The potentials are huge, as my colleagues have enumerated some. But we remain a sleeping giant because of leadership. Leadership that thrives on dishonesty. We say one thing, but what we mean is the opposite. And that's why I'm saying my agreement with the DP stops there perhaps. But let's be honest. Let me begin by myself being honest. Let him begin also by being honest. But also, having mentioned that, Debarl, this handshake, my suggestion to Kenyans would be, President Kenyatta and the former Prime Minister Raila have set the stage. Maybe they should hijack the agenda from the two of them. Can we make it to be a Kenyan agenda? How do we get this, the Kenya we want? How do we reinvent that Kenya come 2022? And it can be done, but it can only be done not by the two, not even by the committee of 14. Those could just give guidance. But I think the Kenyans themselves must not lose this opportunity to shape Kenya through a national dialogue forum. And we are hoping that ultimately we'll get to that stage.
Let's say from David Mokali.
I share completely in the good intentions of Dr. Ochuodo that we should focus on the big things and the good things that we are doing as a country or that we need to do. But you see, the role of the media is also to check against word against deed. That's my business.
Yeah.
So we are not going to accept someone says to abandon checking the word against the deed. Because, look, in fact, I am living in dread nowadays. The good handshake we celebrated seems to be filtering away, you know, into something else controversial. If you ask me, the management of the handshake after leaves a lot to be desired. It has left us to speculate because there's no substance to accompany the handshake or the memorandum, the 9-point agenda. So what is the media supposed to do? Write about nothing? The memorandum was one document which had 9 points explaining our historical problems and what afflicts the country and what we need to do. What we're waiting for is to see the action pursuant to that declaration. It is not happening. In fact, the shakers of the hands are all cagey about exactly what they meant or how to amplify or break down the handshake. Because the memorandum of understanding that was signed is like a vessel. We want to see the contents. And you see, even the team they set up is not moving. 2 months down the line, we have left and given opportunity to detractors of the handshake to take center stage. It cannot be blamed on us or the media or anyone else except the people who are supposed to drive that process. So I would say they should move quickly, put the country in shape and lead. Show us the way of the handshake so that we don't have such statements which are taking away the benefits of that handshake.
But they will argue and say, David, that yes, we have a team which has been formed, constituting of 14-member, a team. Yes. So the media also should exercise some patience and see what will actually come out from this particular, team in the first place.
You see, the nature, this is like politics, and it abhors that vacuum. There has to be action going on in politics. And secondly, we have to see whether indeed the handshake meant anything. And if it did, what are its implications? What is going on as a result of that handshake? And that's why the media is prodding, finding out, is there anything? What next? Why is it secretive? Why is it something that's not public? Even it is in the public interest, it should be made public and everybody should be invited to the table to feast to the feast of the handshake. Why is it not happening? So questions must be raised, and those questions are important to prod the movers of the handshake to take us forward. So they're not really necessarily destructive questions, or the reporting is not necessarily destructive. Let me leave that handshake to the owners of the handshake, because we really don't know what it has. In fact, after the president spoke the other day on Friday about the constitution and his position on the referendum, and I'm still trying to study that. In fact, I've played back that clip enough times to see what did he exactly mean. Did he say, I don't have time as President Uhuru Kenyatta to run around to ask people to change the constitution because my hands are full with my Big Four agenda of fixing the country? Or did he say, we don't need constitutional reform? If he did, then we're having two people of the same handshake talking different things. Because the Odinga statement implied that there could be some understanding that there will be need for constitutional changes to give effect to the good agenda of national unity. So if we are leaving gaps in statements like that, or people are pushing against the handshake so that the president might step back from things he might have committed, perhaps, or the understanding they may have had, well, then we must raise questions. So for me, and I believe that's my personal view, this country deserves some constitutional reform, a change, amendments. I believe that these changes will happen before 2022 if we are serious about securing our democracy and bring unity into our politics.
Maybe effective communication will do, maybe coming from the Right Honorable Raila Odinga and President Uhuru Uhuru Kenyatta himself, at least to tell us where actually this particular handshake is at. Will it hold in the first place? Since actually they shook this particular handshake, do you think also the government is actually putting out an effective communication as far as this?
That's why I said I think the management of that handshake, the
Uh-huh.
communication that has proceeded after that
is wanting,
and the details of it and how it pans out really has left a lot for speculation and therefore undermining the good intentions, which may end up achieving very little because of that management.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can you look to the angle of the media coverage with these issues? Dr. Oshoda has said that we need to focus on the real major issues. And normally we say we don't want to do that because you have to create news. Media is in the business of selling war, scandals, and controversy. That's business for them. I can tell you that we actually may have misread what the president said. None other than the celebrated David McCarley of Columbia University says that he's trying to replay that clip, but he cannot really decipher what the president says. The president did a joint statement with Raila with 9 points. They talked clearly about tribalism, about the need for inclusivity, and about corruption.
But is David alluding to that particular clip itself? This was
he's talking about the clip of State House. Okay?
Yes.
On Friday, when the president was talking to the manufacturers and
Yes.
at the Association of Manufacturers and at KEPSA. But all I'm saying is that sometimes in midst of your speech, you go off the cuff and say, like he did, apart from what you are doing out there, I really don't have the time to go expend all the energies and resources talking about the constitution. The most important things, and it is actually agreed, are these issues before us. The audience for him that day were the manufacturers, and he was telling them, this, apart from politics out there, this is a message I have that we really need to sort out the big four in order to take the country forward. What happened are two things. First, the media was very quick to pick breaking news. The president said, I'm opposed to constitutional change. Okay? He never said that. Then, the individuals who are uncomfortable with the handshake were very quick. The president told them many times, stop talking about 2022. They had defied him. Now, when he said, I have no time to go running around on the issue of Katiba, they are taking political capital.
Right.
So you can call those political detractors and the media positively, so that I'm not misquoted, scavengers, political scavengers. They are political scavengers.
All right, allow us to just take a short break a bit, then we circle back, of course, with more, as we're looking also at the NYS scandal as well. Just very briefly, don't go away.
I do, of course.
So does it mean...
He agreed with me.
Yeah, of course, but I need to be careful not to be seen again.
watching This Is The Point here on Live. We continue with the conversation with the panelists here. And before we took a short break, of course, it was on Shemo Chodho to say something.
The aspect of whether should we go through a constitutional reform or not, I think that's a debate that's going to engage us for the next couple of months. And as a National Mediation Forum, which Honorable Kabando here and I belong to, the position is, and it brings together 14 different initiatives. The premise is that we need to audit the Constitution, what has worked, what hasn't worked, and why, what can we improve on. I think there is no denying that there are some issues that need to be worked on, a few that have been spoken around the table, but that audit is critical. Having also said that, we can also look at this process in two stages. There are certain short-term gains, what one may call quick wins. If there is truly goodwill on those 9-point agenda, that particularly the Jubilee government can demonstrate that, and I really want to extend the invitation. When we talk of the DP going to Western and so on, I really hope, I can't wait for the day when President Uhuru, former Prime Minister, and even all the other leaders go to Nyanza, for example. I want to see projects being announced there. I want to see them all together go to Northeastern, for the marginalized areas, because these are some of the points they carry in their 9-point agenda. But let there be some quick wins that demonstrate to the Kenyan people that this handshake was more than individual gain. That's what I wanted to add.
All right, let's say from Omogini, unless you have other sentiments on the handshake, then we can close this particular chapter. We drill deeper now on NY scandal. Omogini?
Yeah, I think the president and the former prime minister had good intentions. That handshake, they put forward a very good agenda for the country, and they placed some responsibility on 2 individuals, secretariat, to manage the process. That has since been increased to, a team of other 16 people from across the country. So my take is that now the responsibility is on this enlarged team, and I think we even have members of National Assembly, we have senators sitting in place, and I want them to focus on the single agenda that we want to look at this constitution. And when you talk about audit, the constitution implementation process has been very costly to this country. Year in, year out, this country has been crying that we are spending so much resources on managing our wage bill instead of pushing a lot of money to development. So when we talk about looking at this constitution, it's not what somebody is saying that we are looking at positions for individuals. We want the Kenyan people to enjoy the benefits of the constitution that they enacted in 2010. And then the problem that has been with us for so many years, inclusivity. Inclusivity. Really, if anybody is in leadership and wants to shut his eyes to this devil that has been with us for so long, then they are not worth being leaders in this country. So I think this is the time that we need to rally all our leaders, stakeholders like these initiatives. Let's have it as a single agenda that between now and maybe the next 2 years, our single purpose as a country is to push an agenda of constitutional reform, create a constitution that makes us more united, one people, and I think that's the best legacy that the president can leave on us. For my colleagues in politics, the senators I see on weekends, let's forget about this politics of Vitandawili, this politics. Let's for once make our people vote for us proud, that we can come down and have an issue-based agenda. Remember in the US, there was a time when the threat of the Americans was at stake, during the terrorist attacks. And President Bush needed to get enough senators to pass a vote so that he could send the army to Iraq. There are senators who are from the Democrats, including Hillary Clinton, who said, if this is in the best interest of the security of the American people, I'll vote with the Republicans. And that's what she did. And I'm waiting for a day when I'm going to see leaders from both sides of the political divide uniting in the best interest of this nation. That's what I'm waiting for, Debarl.
Anybody, I would say, anybody opposed to the handshake, to the clearly stated 9-point agenda, is opposed to inclusivity, is opposed to fighting corruption, is opposed to finishing tribalism, is opposed to reviewing the national ethos, national values that we truly so direly need. Anybody opposed to the handshake is opposed to Uhuru Kenyatta. And if you're from the NASA side, it means you don't have confidence in your leader, Raila Odinga. This is not about Raila. This is not about Uhuru. I want to remind Kenyans that selfish and short-sighted individuals changed the Kenyan constitution in the late 1960s so that the presidential candidate to succeed Kenyatta had to be over 40 years. The intention was to block the then flamboyant, brilliant Tom Mboya. In 1976, people tried to change the constitution in order to remove the 90 days allowed in the case of the death of a president or incapacitation of the president so that Daniel Moi could not be. Those who tried to block Tom Mboya did not become president. Okay? Those who tried to block Moi did not become president. So we need to revisit. And those who did 1966 against Jaramogi, so Jaramogi's son and Kibaki united in 2002. It is important for those who are seeking to occupy the house on the hill, State House, to really embrace the 9-point agenda.
Thank you.
Because that is how we are going to invest for posterity.
Thank you. Right. Without much further ado, let's see also what is on the page 9 of a standard. And there is a call there from Senator Mutula Kilonzo saying that we should actually dissolve the NYS because, of course, it's so much checkered with corruption. If we may just pick up that particular, this is actually the standard, the page 9 of a standard. If you may please, Mutula calls for disbandment of National Youth Service over scam. It says, Makueni Senator Mutula Kilonzo has called for the disbandment of the National Youth Service in the wake of fraud claims involving billions of shillings at the institution. He said the NYS should instead be restructured and placed under substantive ministry as a department. And I want to show you also the editorial cartoon that we have also in the Star today. This is in light of what Victor has drawn. With the opposition dead, who will squeeze on our behalf? And you can see what is being squeezed there. Of course, the tenders. You can see the light there, or the bulb is ahead of the Right Honorable Raila Odinga personified there. That is from Victor in the Star. NYS looters, all the balls, really all the tenders are in the G-clump right now. Who will squeeze these balls? That is a probing question, and we are actually looking at what we're discussing this morning with the NYS scandal. First of all, let's begin with you, David Makali. Head of content, you allowed Victor to actually...
Victor is, I think, one of the best cartoonists you have around. His cartoons always communicate directly. It's a crisis, if I may just put it that way. We have a repeat scandal because the lessons from the first were not learned. Or there was no deterrent from the first scandal. These guys, people stole money, testimonies were given of how money was carried in sacks. People were investigated, suspects prosecuted, nobody convicted. The question is, nobody was convicted, but money was lost. That's where the country was left, poor without a solution. Blame game, investigators were poor, evidence wasn't adequate, or there was this compromise that. What this means is that unless we really firmly deal with corruption and suspects are punished in a manner that communicates to the rest, these kinds of things will continue. Two, NYS itself, I think right from the beginning, in the new NYS, we call it the Tahingunye NYS, because it's the new format, the revised blueprint. When it started, there were a lot of questions about whether this is the way to go. Mm-hmm. But the government and the movers of NYS were very defensive. Yet it was clear there were loopholes, money was being disbursed through systems which were not accountable. Where you send money in sacks to people to pay casual, guys working out there, NYS volunteers and so on. Those loopholes were never sealed. And that's what's just going on. I mean, this system is getting lots of money, but the system is not tight, is not fraud-proof. So we keep doing the same things.
Aren't you astounded that they still have the cheek to, you know, continue with pilfering the public
Because
coffers?
the first crop
crop
of fraudsters got away with it. Nobody charged. Nobody. I mean, that is a scar on our country. Billions lost, nobody charged, and we know the money was stolen. And the magistrate acquitted people without direction on what next should be done. So there was no further investigation. And yet we know money was stolen. As somebody said, people took money and they were catwalking.
The catwalking, yes, and of course the question would be,
catwalks.
do you support Mutula Kilonzo's stand that we should actually disband NYS?
No,
yeah.
I don't think so. First of all, I think NYS has a function to play in this country. In fact, it needs to be, you know, polished. But some elements of it, I think, are extreme because NYS cannot serve everything and be everything. It has to narrow down to what do we want to do. Want to train skilled young men and women living post-high school, give them skills and to go out and serve public, do public service a little and then go out to run their careers? Or do we want to make it an employment bureau where people are now going to be employed in NYS? That is what I don't think we should do. It should be retained, but not as a place for creating jobs, to hire another civil service cadre.
And the figures being thrown around, yeah, oh, it is not 10 billion, it was only 121 million shillings, you know. It seems that this is just a pocket change. So, maybe your comments,
yeah. I think we should also, we should celebrate those who are doing good. At this juncture, I think it's good to note that the National Intelligence Service under Camero and the Directorate of Criminal Investigation under Mr. Kinoti, George, and the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, Mr. Hanji, are doing something. We need to congratulate them. We need to encourage them. We need to tell public officials who are doing something important and good for the country, particularly to protect the resources of Kenya and the opportunities for the youth, because it's about youth of Kenya, it's about the wealth of Kenya. Mr. Kameru, Mr. Kinoti, Mr. Haji, you're on track. Don't fail this country. You have support, quiet and loud. God be with you as you seek justice for Kenyans. If the late Griffins were to wake up today, and the late J.M. Kariuki, and the late General China, Waruhi Itote, the founders of the National Youth Service, would be they proud? Would they say, like we did with Starehe and other motions of private members on high patches by JM and the Mau Mau War by General China, will be happy? Will we be happier than we were because posterity has harvested very well? I think National Youth Service, my friend Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr., cannot be disbanded and will never be disbanded. It is a bad notion, is a bad concept, even is a wrong imagination. But because to disband NYS,
it is a cash cow.
Would
a cash cow.
Well, will mean that if you have bad manners in a sector, we get frustrated, we despair, and we give up. You correct the mistakes. You don't disband your company because it is being mismanaged. You hire new managers and you refill the empty spaces so that you stabilize and you move forward. It's about 101 in management. So National Youth Service is about, and I think what else should be done, it should not be spread everywhere. I've had an experience. Okay? I was in the Ministry of Youth Affairs myself for 5 years, 08 to 2013. And I can tell you, thousands of young men and women have gone through the regular training of NYS as a servicemen and servicewomen, and majority of them have also benefited from full scholarship in various courses, engineering, hospitality, teaching, from Gilgil to all the way in Roraka, 3-year course, diploma through the National Youth Service. If you look at the thousands of people, the 20,000, the 30,000 every year that are being churned out of the National Youth Service, then we need to say there's a bastion where we need to ring fence. What we need to do, And I said it when we are here on Monday. Remember my parting shot? I held the newspaper, they said, on this particular matter, His Excellency, our leader, Uhuru Kenyatta, will not let it go. It will be a lesson. Yesterday, as we left church, we were met with the breaking news that Madam Professor Margaret Kobia, who has a very good reputation in public service, including director of the School of Government, had sent home over 40 officers at the National Youth Service. We don't want any misfortune to befall anybody, but the whip must be cracked. The merchants of impunity and the graft must be punished. And for Uhuru Kenyatta, and even I would say for this country, and particularly symbolized in the handshake, the legacy will have to do more with fighting corruption, because it's about the resources to move forward.
Well, yeah,
we are the right
Thank you. A good gesture from Margaret Kobe, but it's not the first time that we're seeing the same script.
But it's good.
Yeah, officers being sent home. Then what after that? That is what happened with
benefit of
with the first system.
Benefit of handshake. This time round, Uhuru and Raila combined, and it's
I think we'll be overplaying our hands if you say the benefit of
handshake. We need to be optimistic. We need to have hope.
Debarl, I think I want
Romans
to go.
Verse 5. Have hope.
I want to go.
Yes, Pastor.
I want to go to that cartoon. There.
Yes, the cartoon.
With the opposition dead.
Yes.
Who will squeeze on our behalf? And I want to say that even makes the debate we have had this morning about constitutional reform urgent than ever. You know, you can see that people of this country have a feeling that the opposition is orphaned. And this has been for the simple reason that after 2010, the guy who commands massive support in opposition, who becomes #2 after elections, sits outside parliament. He is not in the National Assembly or in the Senate to lead checks and balances against the government of the day. I think that's a big mistake that we committed. You know, we cannot have a country that is dependent on handshakes to say now we don't have an opposition to check on the government of the day. I think if there is an urgent constitutional reform that this country needs, is a framework that creates a strong opposition that can effectively check on the government of the day. And a debate that cannot be done by, you know, you pick somebody campaigns, becomes the chair of the Public Accounts Committee or Public Investments Committee. You know, there is a time, remember when the former President Mwai Kibaki used to be the leader of opposition. And any time he could speak in the National Assembly to take on government, it used to be earth-shaking. And you can imagine if you have maybe Raila Odinga as the leader of opposition on an issue like this, taking on the government, it will be earth-shaking. So when that cartoon is displayed there, we must accept that we have some serious weaknesses on this constitution in terms of effective check on the government of the day. And as a country, we must say this is the time that we should seize to create strong checks against the government of the day. Now, coming back to NYS, I think we as members of parliament are also on the spot, because we just get instructions from the executive. We are told this is what the executive wants to do. When these things come to parliament, we are never overzealous in checking what is this meant to be. Do we have the infrastructure? Do we have the human resource in place to handle this kind of budget? A proposal was made to increase the budget for NYS from 5 billion to 25 billion. Did Parliament seriously audit the decision that was made and say, look, what are these projects that you want to undertake with this 25 billion? Now, do we have the structures in place that will ensure that this money will be used effectively and for the benefit of the people of Kenya? Granted, we all agree that NYS is a good thing. There are so many youths, even from my own county, who have really been recruited to NYS. Some have benefited, some have come out to really get useful within the society's economic structures. That is fantastic. But there seems to be a serious problem, and it's on the structures of NYS. I read a sad story. I think it was in Nation yesterday. Somebody who says, look, I'm one of the genuine suppliers to NYS. My wife borrowed 700,000 shillings, made the delivery to NYS. But because she could not give kickbacks, She was never paid. I think for the last 4 years, till she died from hypertension and diabetes. What does that tell you? It tells you that the system inside NYS is rotten. That there are suppliers who are in, they are called the blue boys of the system, who can be paid, and I hear one family can create up to 6 companies. Just one family, same directors. Their supplies are paid almost on the spot. But
Kafura had how many companies? 20 of them.
You know, you can imagine. So I want to say that what we need to do really, if we are serious on this, because that budgetary allocation is still there for NYS, we need to fix the internal systems of NYS.
Thank you.
Debarl, I wanted to concur with Senior Counsel in terms, firstly in terms of strengthening oversight. In fact, one of the things the initiative to Shauriane, which is part of the National Mediation Forum, proposes of the 6th, is strengthening oversight, not only at the national government level, but even at the county government level. Our recommendation is that whoever is the runner-up in the election should be official leader of opposition, gubernatorial, as well as at national level, with a shadow cabinet to oversight the government. The only thing I could add is that this may not even require constitutional reform. Maybe as a statute of parliament could still provide for it in the short term, in terms of those short, quick wins that we could have. Of course, the other substantive amendments or reforms could take a little more medium to longer term. But also I wanted to concur with the institutions that Mheshimiwa Kabando was complimenting. Have done an excellent job. The NIS, the DPP, the DCIO, and so on. I may even add to that list, in this particular case, the Auditor General and the Judiciary. I think, to be fair to them, and of course, Nation Media Group that brought this out. I think it's an important role that you're playing, and that those constitutional bodies are playing, and they need to continue playing it. We may not go too much into the details of the NYS because we do not know what is still speculation and what's fact. I'm hoping that the matter is going to be litigated in court, and that due process will take place. But most importantly is the issue of the national values in Article 10. In fact, the government did launch in 2013 the sessional papers number 8 and 9 that talk about the national ethos. In fact, in line with the Vision 2030, one of the pillars was the political pillar, which talks about the issues-based politics and so on, and the software that we need to fix our country. I think even though we are talking about NYS, the problem is much bigger. I think if we could only, even as leaders, internalize and have those national values, as well as Article 10 and Chapter 6 of the Leadership and Integrity, the problems would be minimized.
All right. In investigations, there's some people who have been left out of the investigations from NYS 1.
Season 1.
Season 1. Politicians.
This
is something that has been lost.
Thank you.
People made noise, both from opposition. The investigations of this NYS 2 should include also serving members of parliament.
Thank you.
And even members of parliament who have left because they were the main obstacles to full investigations last time.
Thank you. And that will be your parting shot. Thank you very much. Let's hear your parting shot. David Makali, your parting shot.
I think we have to end it there, but I just want to say that I think with regard to the handshake, 2 things. One, let's operationalize the handshake. Let the authors tell us the way forward, and let's move and clear this whole guesswork game going on. On the constitutional reform, I think let's not make this another combative, process. It's good. Everybody knows we need some reforms. Let's set up a team to identify the issues that we need to look at, and then find, sort of consensus forward on how to proceed with this referendum thing.
Thank you. Omogini, your parting shot, very briefly.
Yeah, I think my parting shot is that an appeal to my fellow politicians, let's seize the moment and drive the agenda of constitutional reform. It's all in the best interest of this great country of ours called Kenya.
Thank you.
Mine is, rather than Kenyans wait for the 2 leaders and the committee of 14 to define the agenda, I think we need to grab the opportunity. The fact that we still have a window of opening to gather views of Kenyans. Perhaps I'm hoping groups will do some kind of rapid appraisal to capture what is it that Kenyans generally, up to the grassroots, feel ill Kenya, and how can we fix them? And what should be our end game? What some people are calling Canaan. What should it be? I think even without waiting for the committee of 4, Kenyans need to start having these conversations.
Thank you. Right, we need to start having the conversation. Of course, the conversation also goes on Twitter as well. I'll read some of them as we're winding up. We have Korir Hen saying, I think the panelists are trying to sugarcoat what Uhuru said on Friday. He said he don't support referendum calls. Go to Manoa's Twitter handle and read his tweets, which were retweeted by Uhuru. Well, we don't know how genuine those tweets sometimes are. It can be, you know, an imposter as well. Abala Kinyo is saying disbanding NYS cannot be the solution to corruption at the institution. We need serious people who are accountable. Otherwise, we'll be moving it to new looters in the ministries. Also, David Akiama is saying, I don't concur with Senator Mutula to disband NYS or disband NYS. There are just few cartels who need to be investigated and arrested. Also, we have, I guess, Milimu is saying, Mimi, nitagojea kwa debe. Also, we have the servant advocate saying, sending individuals home will not remedy the situation. The money stolen will not be refunded to the public coffers. All we want is prosecution and refund of our money. We have Andrew Njoroge saying, you panelists need to realize there is an opposition in place performing its rightful role, but you media choose to ignore Third Way Alliance and Ekura Okot, a warped sense of objectivity synonymous with Kenyan media. See our presser, right? Also, we have Don Peter saying the fight on corruption in this country was long lost, sad. We have also Skripal. How can we start changing a constitution we have not yet implemented? That's the question he's asking. Also, Andrew J. Franklin said we need to implement the entire 2010 constitution and all subsidiary legislation enacted since that particular date, that is the 27th of 8th, 2010, to see what works and what needs to be fixed. Amending laws before implementation makes very little sense and is a waste of time. Spend time making things work. Also, we have, I read his, so I can actually just try and pick others. There were so many of them. Let's hear from Obunge. Obunga Brang says Sonko is holding some cards under the table. His war is for far above DG and cleaning the city. Miguna is just a distraction. Also, we have Kiprono Abraham Kogo saying those attacking, I should say, Sonko are not genuine. They should know that national government delays release if money to counties and also too early to criticize Sonko. I leave it for you to decipher that. And let me try and pick another one. There, Beng Charlie says Sakaja made it clear Miguna will never be deputy governor under Jubilee's party watch. The tyranny of numbers at the county assembly won't allow it. We'll leave it at that. Thank you for your valued company. You've been watching This Is a Point, and I want to thank also our panelists this morning for that cogent discussion we just had with them. David Bakali, Dr. Shemo Chuodo, also Senator Okongo Omogeni, and Kabando. Thank you very much for your input this morning. Thank you for your valued company as well. Have a lovely day.